From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
Good morning and welcome back to Montana This Morning on this Monday, March 31st. I'm Augusta McDonnell here with Miller Robson.
Good morning, Augusta. Happy Monday, everybody.
Welcome to Monday. It is 6 a.m. and we are off to the races on another big week with some changes in our forecast.
Yeah, more unsettled weather on the way, coming off of record temperatures. The middle of last week, we saw some cold temperatures yesterday. Well, let's go ahead and take a step back in time. We only hit 32 yesterday in Billings, a good 21 degrees below the norm. Our low of 28, about 3 degrees below average. Top gusts yesterday of 20 miles an hour. Of course, the big story yesterday, the snow coming down. You take that snow, you put it all together. In some areas saw some rain. We had officially at the airport just over 3/10 of an inch of moisture, and that's what we need. We need the moisture. But in terms of the snow, just over 3 inches officially at the airport. Here are some of the reports coming in, just a few spots here. And now this is not a total list. If you go to my Facebook page, meteorologist Miller Robson, we have all the snow totals reported from yesterday that have been reported so far. It's not a complete list. I'm sure some more numbers are coming in. If you want to, give me a shout out on my Facebook page and let me know how much snow you got in your area. That'd be great. But 3 inches in Big Timber, 6 inches in Livingston, Melville, just over 4 inches, Molt over 2 inches, almost 2.5 inches in Park City, and almost 2.5 inches down in Red Lodge. Moisture totals for the month, pretty good. Looking great for the year. Still some work to do for the snow totals for the month, but we did make a bit of a dent there for the season. We're still pacing ahead. In fact, we only got to go 2 more inches and we'll make up what we usually get in total. We usually get about 57.5 inches of snow for the season. We're almost there, and we still have more snow in the forecast. But the big story this morning, the fog. Watch out for visibility issues as you're heading in for your morning commute. We will have a complete look at your forecast in that next winter storm. What's going on with that? Details coming up.
All right, Miller, thanks for tracking all of that. Lots going on this morning. And now to our top story. The Billings community came together on Sunday to show love on Trans Visibility Day. Our Marcus Kokova was at a rally where folks were discussing both sides of this issue.
Today, a gathering in Billings marks the annual Trans Day of Visibility.
We won't go back!
But there's a bit more statewide setting these events apart from the handful of stories on the courthouse lawn as of late.
Just on Friday, Gianforte passed 2 pieces of legislation basically banning transgender individuals from using the bathroom in which they identify as, and then the sports ban.
Those bills were sponsored by State Senator Sue Vinton. The latter bars transgender women from women's sports and locker rooms.
When I was in high school, I ran track on the boys' track team. Not because I was so great or because I wanted to, but it was because it was the only opportunity that I had.
Sue says she's concerned about impacts on Title IX, which she credits for allowing her to participate in college athletics. And data suggests men do tend to outperform women athletically by 10 to 30%. Why she backed HB 300, a position Bailey Desper disagrees with.
Your appearance, your muscle mass, and all that changes with the progress of the hormones. So I don't really see a big deal about it.
But Sue says the debate goes beyond fairness.
I personally don't feel unsafe around trans people. I wouldn't feel unsafe with a trans person using the same restroom as me. That's me personally, but I can't project those values onto others.
And Bailey pushes back.
So they're classifying as something that we're not, right? Just because we're trans or are, using the bathroom that we identify as doesn't make us a rapist.
A point data seems to support. 2021 statistics show nearly 94% of sex offenses were committed by men. But if you've been paying attention, this has mostly been a back and forth, one point and another.
I think the media really heightens people's differences. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I think that has led us to where we are today.
So let me set the table for future conversations. Because after all, these 2 separate interviews, hours apart, seemingly opposing points of view, had at least one overlapping touchstone.
I also believe and appreciate that Martina Navratilova suggested an open division where any individual, trans or not, can choose to compete.
If you're looking for fair and equitable, why not have a multi-gender team, I guess?
Marcus Kokova, MTN News.
Marcus, thanks so much. The bill limiting bathroom use goes into effect immediately, while a ban on transgender women competing in women's sports set to go into effect July 1st. A legal challenge to the new laws was immediately filed by the ACLU on Thursday. Also this week at the legislature, the body will tackle its biggest task, the main budget bill. That massive bill, which lays out about $8 billion in spending each of the next 2 years, will be debated by the House over the next 5 days. Democratic Representative Mary Cafaro says Democrats are pleased the committee backed additional funding on human services, but says they'd like to see more. She also remains concerned about how upcoming tax legislation could impact the budget.
That's why we can't give 100% ringing endorsement to House Bill 2 until all things are taken into consideration.
Meanwhile, Republican Lou Jones, who chairs the Appropriations Committee, believes the bill came out in good shape and contains enough to hold a reasonable budget growth.
It's slightly smaller than what the governor proposed, both in all funds and in general fund, since I look at both. And it certainly has legislative fingerprints on it.
The full House will debate the entire bill Wednesday, and once approved, it will head over to the Senate for consideration. And Friday in Helena, Montana's highest court heard arguments on whether they should uphold a recommended disciplinary action against the state's top elected attorney. Last year, a panel said Attorney General Austin Knudsen violated ethical rules for lawyers in his handling of the dispute between the state legislature and judicial branch. MTN senior political reporter Jonathan Ambarian was there as both sides made their case to the Montana Supreme Court.
As the Montana Supreme Court considered the professional conduct complaint against Attorney General Austin Knudsen on Friday, justices had some sharp questions about how the case got to this point and about where to go from here.
This is the time for oral argument in the matter of Austin Miles Knudsen.
Last October, a state panel recommended that Knudsen be suspended from practicing law for 90 days, saying he had violated the ethical code attorneys must follow. But the Supreme Court has the final say on whether any discipline is warranted. The case dates from 2021, when Knudsen represented the legislature as they sought judicial branch emails through a subpoena, attempting to find out if judges had expressed opinions on proposed bills. The Supreme Court eventually quashed the subpoenas. During that case, Knudsen's office made several statements accusing justices of improper conduct. Solicitor General Christian Corrigan, representing Knudsen, argued there had been procedural issues throughout this case, and that the statements at issue were made in good faith.
Regardless of whether those statements or legal conclusions about bias and conflict of interest were ultimately true, the point is they were objectively reasonable under the circumstances.
Tim Strauch, a special counsel for the office that investigated Knudsen, argued that wasn't enough to justify his actions.
Where he crossed the line, I believe, and I'm asking this court to draw this line, is attacking the integrity and qualifications of a court. Completely unnecessary.
Chief Justice Corey Swanson and Associate Justice Catherine Bidigary weren't on the court when these issues first came up, and they were the only justices who didn't recuse themselves. 5 district court judges are filling in on this case. During Friday's hearing, Swanson pressed on whether Knudsen had gotten a fair chance to respond throughout the process.
I mean, this thing's a mess from start to finish. I agree with you. A whole bunch of their statements and conduct on the front end look bad. But the proceeding, ruling on things without him having a chance to respond, and issuing this immediately before the election, how is that not? That looks political.
The court, as usual, took no immediate action after Friday's hearing. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Jonathan, thanks so much. We'll keep an eye on that case. And Montana's open wrestling tournament came to a close Sunday as the champions were crowned a pair of brothers on a day when champions, of course, were crowned. Brothers Jarrett and Sawyer Deegan reflected on their careers coming full circle. The two from Belgrade are no stranger to this event, having competed through high school and college. They are reflecting on their full circle career, now leading as coaches. The two competitors again coaching, helping Montana's future generations follow in their footsteps.
That's the big thing. I just want to give back to the community and teach them what I got taught.
It's not about me and him anymore. It's about those little kids. So that's why we do it still.
The two say they enjoy helping the next generation and plan to do it for years to come. And the Montana Food Bank Network supplies food to more than 170 food banks and pantries statewide, helping rural areas and reservations. But the network depends on some funding from the Federal Department of Agriculture. And now its challenge is greater than ever as food programs end up in the crosshairs of the latest DOGE budget cuts. MTN's Jill Valley has this morning's Montana Ag Report.
At the Montana Food Bank Network Distribution Center in Missoula, pallets of pork and pounds of potatoes will soon be on the way to feed people in all corners of the state.
This one is going to Wolf Point.
We do about 16 to 18 million pounds of distribution out of here every year.
But not this year. The USDA abruptly canceled part of the Emergency Food Assistance Program called CCC, or the Commodity Credit Corporation.
We have not experienced cancellations at this level.
And that means more than 300,000 pounds of food, more than $400,000 worth that Montana was scheduled to receive, will never arrive at this distribution center.
I think we saw this coming. I mean, they were starting to eliminate some school feeding programs and other federal assistance programs. So we were kind of waiting for this to happen, but really hoping that they would preserve the assistance to our communities.
The TFAP CCC funds are sent to the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services from the USDA. Then a portion of that goes to the Montana Food Bank Network, which supports 171 food banks and pantries across the state. And of those, more than 70 qualify for this CCC assistance. And they rely on the high-value nutritional food that comes with the money. Things like milk, chicken, eggs, and cheese.
And this cancellation that we received of over 300,000 pounds is about 10% of what we ordinarily get on an annual basis. So just those cancellations alone, that does not include the ones that are paused until further notice. We don't know what that's going to entail yet.
Gail Carlson tells me food banks across the state have weathered the impacts of COVID, a recession, and government shutdowns before, turning to supporters and foundations to help fill the gaps when funds are low and demand is high. But as some fear, this might just be the beginning of a very lean time for food assistance in Montana.
And I don't think, unfortunately, this is going to be the end of the cuts. This is just one of the 3 avenues of TFAP that they have restricted now, and we don't know what will happen with the other 2. The plan is never to turn anyone away, but there may not be the large quantity that they can get on a regular basis.
In Missoula, Jill Valley, MTN News.